Welcome everybody to Motherhood, Rawful But True, with me, your host, Rainbow Goddess. This podcast offers candid portrayals of the reality of mothering in a Western, individualistic, patriarchal culture. Welcome everybody to this series of special stories and unique circumstances. I'm going to be interviewing mothers with really special, really profound mothering experiences to showcase some, really acute situations to help us all deepen in to the richness of motherhood and what mothers go through. So this particular episode, interviewing Laura Jade. Laura Jade has a story of grief. She lost a baby, was 13 hours old, and she wants to share that she's in this reflective place now and feels that it could really be helpful for her and her healing and for other mothers who've experienced losing children. The other thing Laura Jade is wanting to do is discuss the dominion of the clinical industry on the female body and how this is taking away our autonomy. And then we're having these procedures, and then only later on we're realizing that we didn't actually want to do that, but it's too late. So then there's rage and more grief about the impact of the clinical industry. So we're going to get into these themes. We're going to open up. Laura's going to be very brave and just really encouraging you all to, go steady, reach out, lean into support if this is challenging or triggering for you. Okay. So Laura, welcome, and thank you so much for coming on, for being brave enough, for offering this sharing, and for holding the intention that it's going to help other people. Yeah, I'm really inspired by you. I can already feel myself grounded deeply into the earth to open for this. We've shared a little bit in the interim before we press record, and what you've managed to do with this grief and how you're now serving and you've opened this wild space for people to come. It's very, very inspiring, how you've used your traumatic experience and turned it into something that's medicine for other people. It's just really incredible. So really celebrating you, really amazing to have you on. Thank you so much. And now I'll hand over to you, Laura, if you can give the listeners a bit of your history, a bit of trajectory leading up to Tommy.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me have the space, because it just feels really on time for me at the moment to be sharing everything that I've been reflecting on since losing Tommy, more so. Obviously having 4 children prior and 2 stepchildren, I could, have really delve into talking about lots of different experiences. But I think, profoundly for me after Tommy's death, it's been really, reflective to look back on, because there's so much that you have to try and understand, once you leave giving birth and you don't have your baby with you. You have to try and sit with that and understand it and get to the bottom of it, like everything for you, like to be able to move forward with it. So I think, for me, I've been in this journey of just trying to understand it and understand grief and just understand how complex all of it is, just like, you mentioned with having, what I said as dictation, it really feels like that in reflection now, looking back, of knowing that because I'd had 4 cesareans already, so Tommy was my 5th cesarean, and learning that I was pregnant, I already had this thing inside of me of, I don't want to have another cesarean. Like, they had all been chosen for me, and every time, like, the experience afterwards was the same for me, that I just felt like I had no choice in, lots of things, my birth, my body, just, everything about it was already kind of decided from the second I'd announced that I'm pregnant to a health professional. So I kind of had this thing in my mind that I was going to really seek out like a midwife or somebody that could like just give me more information really of, my choices, what I can choose for myself. And obviously this was my fifth child, so I think by that point I'd really, I didn't think that I'd have other children too. So obviously being in this new relationship and us having a baby, like I kind of wanted to take the reins a little bit and think, well, I'd already kind of had some reflection on previous births and, how things had turned out, that this time I was kind of like, I want a bit more say. Um, and then I ended up going into um, premature labour with Tommy. So because it was like, this was in November 2019, so it was like just when COVID was starting to come out. So I took myself to A&E, just having what I personally felt were like contractions, and obviously knew it was very early on. Um, and that itself was a struggle to be heard, because the first thing I was met with was that you've only had previous cesareans, you haven't given birth naturally, so you probably don't know what a contraction, feels like. So I had to kind of, push to be seen of like, that's how I'm feeling. Um, and then, I did get seen. They did some, put me on the monitor, checked for contractions, and, and said that they did think that I was in early labor. So this was when I was like 27 weeks. Um, and they decided that I needed to go to a hospital where there was a neonatal unit, and there wasn't one in the hospital I was currently at. So I needed to be blue lighted to Plymouth, which was like, yeah, quite a drive away. My partner couldn't be like with me because of the whole COVID thing going on, and that there needed to be a midwife with me in case I did give birth on the journey. Um, and then like I had this experience where they came in and they gave me a drug that was like told very, very quickly, like this will help babies, like brain development if it was to come early. Um, I think it's magnesium. Um, but yeah, there's something that they inject to give you that just helps with the brain development. And obviously in the moment you're just like, yeah, you're doing what you're gonna do. And they gave it to me, and the person that gave it to me, I remember her saying it, like she laughed and said like, this is what people call the doom drug. And she said like, in a minute you're gonna feel really like, just as if doom is taking over you. And I remember thinking, oh, like sounds great. And within like moments, I just, from like head to toe, just was covered in sweat. Like my partner could just see beads of sweat just forming on me, and I just blacked out. And that was like really intense, obviously. But then it was like a quick goodbye to him and be in an ambulance and head to the hospital, like essentially on my own with the midwife that came with. So it was already from like that like moment of entering A&E like fast, and not really a chance to even understand what's fully going on, other than like it's a bit of an emergency. So I got to Plymouth and things had like settled down with contractions and stuff. And they were obviously talking to me about that they might have to do an emergency cesarean. And my partner managed to get over then. He had to get a train over and yeah, get to the hospital himself. And yeah, he like we got there, we spent the first night and things had kind of settled. And then the next day my waters broke. So they were kind of more adamant that, things were still going, and I was pretty much in labour by that point. But they had this like watch and wait kind of thing. They said, we'll just wait to see what happens from here, like what he does, and just rest up basically. Um, and then I caught an infection that just made me very, very sick, and then obviously made, Tommy quite sick quickly. But yeah, there was that from that point. Once my blood markers had shown an infection, they decided to do an emergency cesarean. Um, and the birth was surprisingly really well. It was really easy. It felt okay. Everybody around, no one was panicking, and Tommy was in the room with us for about half an hour after he was born, and he was responsive from when he was born. I think he was 1 pound 4. But yeah, he on his own, he was surprising them. So we were in this thing of okay, this is good. And yeah, neither of us, we've both spoke about it many times going backwards, but neither of us felt that they shown us that he wasn't going to make it. From that point, there were, obviously we knew that he was very premature, so it wasn't going to be, very as easy, as just how things can be. But yeah, we wasn't it. They just everything was very calm and positive. And they asked me prior to the cesarean, um, if I'd like to be sterilised. That they thought that if I was to get pregnant again, that would mean I'd have to have 6 cesareans, and that there was a lot of risk involved with that. So their advice was that I should be sterilised, not to have to go through that again. And then me and my partner spoke about it, and it was so emotive, the decision, because in emotion, at no point am I really thinking I'm gonna leave without Tommy. And I'm also thinking I don't want to go through this experience again, if with premature birth and those things, having a risk of stuff. So should I take the doctor's advice in terms of making sure this doesn't happen again for us? And we're very grateful. I have 4 children, and my partner has 2 children, and we now have this baby together. So we're very a complete family. But in hindsight, you're asked to make a decision with very little idea of how things are gonna work out, and it's a very complex decision. And I'd have liked to have been able to just speak to a few friends about it, or run it past our family, and just research a bit more, just think a bit more than just how quick you're asked to make a decision, and how in that moment you don't have the tools that you normally have, even in terms of just the amount of drugs you've been given, and lack of sleep and trauma, and so much happening. It's really a hard time for me to think that's when you should suggest to them that they should make an impactful decision on their future. Because essentially if I if we didn't say yes and have a sterilisation, and Tommy did come home with us, and we decided then that we didn't want to have any more children, there would have still been options for that. But if you make the decision to have the sterilisation, and you come away and you've already made that decision, and then afterwards your child dies, you then it's the decision's already been made, now naturally for you. That's just already done, and you've just got to accept, oh yeah, that's what we agreed at that time and that moment. But yeah, obviously things can really change as life goes on.
Oh, Laura, it's very moving hearing what you're saying, and I just wanted to draw attention to this theme of obstetric violence. Andrea O'Reilly, this amazing researcher who developed matrocentric feminism, has released a journal with a paper on obstetric violence. So it's a new term that we're getting to grips with in culture. And what it means is this: how violent it is in those moments when a woman is like what you've just explained, shut down, tired, emotional, in distress, cut open on a table, and then what they're saying is it's violent to push that on. And so many people have experienced obstetric violence, but we don't know that it's a thing because it's only just emerging now. So it's just, it's rife with it. The clinical industry is rife with it. I think for them in that moment, it's cheaper and easier for them to do it then. I've got another friend who was given a coil in this kind of situation, and so many mothers have experienced this. They call it informed consent, but it's not informed consent at all. It's a forced decision. So it's really important to shine a light on this and to make people aware now. Okay, the NHS is doing the best it can, but it's rife with obstetric violence, and this is causing so much trauma, and then the fallout of that trauma is so difficult for the women to mop up, with everything else what's going on for them. Whether they've got a new baby, whether they've lost a baby, whether they've had this cesarean operation. There's so much going on. And there's no feedback system either in the NHS. There's no healing system. There's no mediation system where these mothers can go back and say, this is what you should have done. Imagine if they could do that. Just give that space of feedback. This is what I would have preferred. That can be really supportive. And the fact that that woman called it the doom drug, like, why would she even say that and laugh? That in itself, I mean, I know they have a lot on and they have a lot to do. They work long hours. So they've got compassion fatigue. But come on, that's mocking, isn't it? And you were so vulnerable then. And then this other thing about not letting the partners, we need the NHS to understand we need people we trust, we need people we love to be around us when we go into these primal states, especially when we're being driven to a clinical institution full of strangers, that's got none of the smells of what we're used to. We really need that company. So again, that's a violent thing just to expect, no, this is the way, get out, you can't come, and then not to tend to you and how you feel about that. Like, so yeah, obstetric violence is a really big deal. I'm glad that it's an emerging concept and just really wanting people to reflect on that, if they've experienced obstetric violence. And that in itself is something to process, isn't it? The revelation of that, like, well, that isn't just how things are, that's how things shouldn't be. And I've been the victim of a really oppressive system that's caused me a lot of trauma. So just wanted to interject with that for the listeners. And thank you, Laura. So continue. So you've got to the hospital, you're having your cesarean.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad you just made a point for listeners, because it is something that's just really been big for me at at the point of motherhood that I'm in, and really noticing that a lot of decisions are made for ease for them, or for business, or anything that works for them basically. When you get to this point where you kind of like, well, for me, I've kind of looked back and I feel a bit foolish now that I didn't handle myself better in those situations, because I do have the tools to do that. And but yeah, you're right, in those moments there is so much to it, with all the fatigue and all the trauma and different things that are going on, that you can't come from that place. So, and I think, like, for me, because of losing Tommy, I've met like so many people, but it's been such a reoccurring thing that when we've opened up and we've shared, that pretty much like most of the people I've spoken to and I've connected with have had their experience of that, of in the violence of it, and just not being able to be in complete control of your body in a moment, or to be given the space to try and work out what you want for your body. And what, like, I've learned is it goes right back. Like, for me, like, I remember as a teenager being taken to the doctors to be given a contraceptive pill just to control my period, so I didn't have a period on the family holiday, because we were going abroad. And it was like, you don't want to have your period in the pool, so let's go get that for you. And that was like early on in my cycle, me starting periods. So I don't think it was like a year in, and I'm already being given a pill to control like when it can naturally come, so it doesn't ruin like the family holiday, or it means I don't get to go in the pool, or it was just the moments that we kind of like, I've learned, for me, it's only been a big moment now. Like for me now, looking back, I'm like, whoa, that wasn't right, and sharing to other people, like my friend, she too lost a baby, and we've like connected so much. But like she wouldn't mind me saying that she had an experience of losing like her virginity, and her family being so like scared about this was going to mean that she was pregnant, that she was just taken and forced to have a coil implanted like there and then, and she said she remembers like the whole procedure just being horrific, being having to be pinned down and just being told like, you need this because you've chosen to have sex now, so that's what happens.
Oh, it's so infuriating, and I relate to this deeply. I was 14 when my mum marched me down to the sex clinic because she'd found out I was being sexual. And what gets me is, I know this is our generation. Our generation is coming into menstrual consciousness. We're becoming aware of our cycle. But like back then, I thought you could get pregnant any day of the month. I didn't realize anything about ovulation. So, if instead of the fear and the control and the suppressing the female system, which is our power, which is our, it's our everything. We should be educating young girls, and there are big movements, aren't there, about the menarche, the first bleed. And I think, like I say, in our generation, it's coming out. And I think my mum just did what she thought was best because she got pregnant with me when she was 18, so she probably thought, I don't want that to happen to my daughter. So in her mind, she was doing what she thought was best. But again, I have a lot of grief about it, and I'm only 41. But this recent cycle, I'm on like day 45, so I think I'm hitting perimenopause early, and it's because I've had so much birth control in my system for years. Like I had a progesterone implant in my arm, which stopped me bleeding. So I feel like I've missed out on so many bleeds, and it was only in my early 30s when I had these revelations that I took all the contraception out and wanted to experience my cycle. And it's been beautiful, the last decade with my cycle, but I'm not ready. And there's so much grief and so much rage at culture and society. So it's interesting that you raised that. And another researcher, Sharon Maloney, she did her PhD thesis on the female body, and she talks again about disempowerment and empowerment and the difference that makes to women and motherhood, and then the impact on breastfeeding, the impact on her sense of self, the impact on the bonding with the kids. If we can get women into a good space with the cycle early on, it's just really empowering, liberating, gives them their autonomy. It's really important. So thanks for touching on that and bringing that up. So let's get back to this theatre. So you're in the theatre, you're having this seemingly easy cesarean section. No one's giving you any clue that there's anything wrong. But then in that moment, you're having this sterilisation. And then after that, you're spending this time with your baby who's probably so tiny, and not thinking anything's wrong. So tell us what happened after that.
Yeah, so Tommy did leave the theatre, and they took him to a neonatal unit and took me to recovery. Um, and obviously, because I'd had the cesarean, like I needed to be on a bed, and they couldn't let me get out of the bed straight away. So I remember one of the midwives like really sticking a neck in for me and saying, "Oh, I'll just push the bed in," because I was like adamant to go and see him. And they were like, "Oh, the bed's too big, and it won't get through." And but this midwife was like, "It will, I'll do it." And she just like, yeah, pushed me through. And yeah, we was by his like cot for quite a while, and we had like pictures with him. And like we didn't hold him at first. Obviously, he was like had like tubes and was in the incubator. But yeah, he like we'd asked, or like I was kind of a bit like just in awe, just staring at Tommy, and my partner was like asking all the questions, and like he was really wanting to know, how is he, how's his sats and everything, and everything at that moment was, everything was okay. They didn't say, that anything wasn't, as in, we really don't think he'll make it. But yeah, so they were just doing their thing with him, and we were kind of like next to the cot. And after a while, one of the nurses said, like, if you want to go get some rest, like, go get some rest, and we'll call you if like you need to come back or anything, or keep you updated. So yeah, we like headed to, I think they put me on a ward, and again, because of the like COVID thing, like Tom couldn't stay with me like on the ward, but they did give him like a room that was um I think that was funds were like raised from a local charity for to make the like a neonatal suite for families. So like yeah, they gave Tom a room there, but he was with me for a moment, and like everything just seemed okay. Like a midwife had came and expressed milk so that they could feed Tommy like breast milk still through like a syringe. He was only having like small amounts, but they wanted to still be able to give him what they could. And she'd come and she'd done that, and then she'd reported back that he'd like took the milk and that he was like, okay and doing good. And then like my partner was just like messaging family and letting people know and updating them, and then this like midwife pulled back the curtain and she was like, you need to come with us. I don't think he's gonna make it. And I remember thinking like, and she's obviously got the wrong parents. Like I just like looked at her and was very like confused by it. And I remember thinking like, uh, I couldn't get out of bed, as in having the cesarean was, wasn't that. I think this was probably about 4 or 5 hours or something after like giving birth, so it wasn't, obviously still pretty sore. Um, but I remember just getting up and just getting into a wheelchair, and they pushed me down, and I remember thinking like to myself like, I know what it is, like I'm already a mom, I know what it is, like he needs me, he just literally needs to know like where's mom kind of thing. And I was just really adamant of like, pass him to me, and I bet you like he'll be okay, he'll be fine, just your maternal instinct of knowing like that's that's what's missing here, that's what they need. And they like got a chair for me and prepared to like give him to me so like he could lie on my chest, but that he'd probably die as soon as they took him out of the incubator. And they lay him on my chest, and like I just remember watching them all and watching their faces for like an idea of what was going on. And I remember the doctor calling my partner over and having like whispering something to him, and then my partner come back over to me and said like his sats are all at perfection, like he's fine now, like he's all right, he seems to be doing what they said that he needed to do, which was to kind of just survive basically. But yeah, he was on my chest and he was fine. Like they had this thing of just leave him there, like leave him be for a bit. And I remember thinking like quite like being really like arrogant of just thinking, yeah, that's what he needed. Like I knew it. Like, can we go to sleep now? Like I'm kind of tired of the drama of, that was a bit dramatic, and we don't need that basically. Let's just chill and go to sleep. So I'd like I fell asleep with him on my chest, and we like slept for hours. My partner was just like watching over us and watching his sats, and like my partner said since that when he was like watching us that everything was absolutely fine, and they'd be like he'd be fine until they kind of like meddled. They'd come over and just check on things, and he said he just noticed for himself, and he kept on saying to them like, they're okay, just like leave them, they're all right. And then we got woken up, and but like they woke me up and said that because he'd been out of his incubator for quite a while, it was probably best to put him back in, and that, you know, like for me to go and get some rest. And I remember my partner being really like, no, like we're all right. Like he said, like he every time they kind of like just come over, he's seen the sats, and my partner is like, he's autistic, so he's really big on numbers and stuff. And for him, like the numbers were all okay when the like Tommy was lying on me, so he was really just in his own mind of like, I don't like, I think they're best left like that. That's what seems to be working. And I remember like assuring him and being like, you know, they know what they're doing, and they obviously he has to go back into the incubator and stay warm and, you know, those things. And yeah, we left again, went to go back to the room, and I think we were there for a couple of minutes before they come again and said that his like sats had all dropped again. So like we went back there, and then like they got literally, I was like back on that chair within minutes, and then they handed to me, and I just remember the doctor like putting like he's checking his heartbeat, and just she just started crying. I remember looking at her and thinking like what a horrible day you've had. Like just like it was like in denial just took over me just straight away, and I just thought like I wasn't thinking about anything. Like I just, to me, like it, like I couldn't accept that that was going to be true. Like I kept on having these moments where time and time, every time I was left with him, I'd kind of be like, come on, just like wake up, like either just think it, or we like, you know, we connect and we can just bring him back, like it can happen. And just, yeah, that was kind of really intense for me, where I kind of didn't, I was really like not aware of the fact that he was actually dead. Like that wasn't like, to me, just been born and it was beautiful, and like finally I was holding him, and they were taking all the wires away so I could hold him properly. So I was like getting a chance to, you know, really be with him, and it didn't register to me, and it just wasn't going in that he was dead, you know. So family came and visit, and my mum and my partner's mum and dad and his brother, and they came to visit us. And I remember being really like, go look at him, you know, who wants to hold him, who, and I'd keep tucking him in and making sure he was warm, and just he had his teddies around him, and just how you know you act after you've just given birth. And I think like for me, it, when I went in to say goodbye to him, like I'd been going into the room so often and just spending time with him and holding him and talking to him, that like it was just, it wasn't a thing. When I was doing it, I was just like, right, okay, I'm going to go into him again. But like I had this realization of like, this has to be the last time, because they're going to take him soon. So like it has to be the last time that, you know, you do this. And I kind of like prepped him for bed, and I took off his like clothes and I dressed him and like read a story to him. And then like I really didn't know what to do, and I was starting to get like panicky of like trying to, you know, like tick the boxes as a mom does, like make sure we've done this and we've done that and got everything in. And I thought to myself, like, just put some music on. And I put this like Disney album on, and I was just like listening to random songs. And then I had this like proper smack in the stomach, where I just thought like, he's not dancing anymore. Like when I was pregnant, I could feel him every time we'd put music on, he'd move and he'd dance, and he really like reacted to music. And then like it just hit me at once that, I couldn't feel him inside me moving, and I could see on the outside he wasn't moving. And I just remember like a feeling like someone had shot me, and I like just dropped to the ground. And I remember thinking like, I don't know how to get up. And all I could do was keep on saying sorry. And I kept on saying sorry to him. And I was like, I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, you know, because he, to me, it was like, you're not moving. And that's like, that's my fault. You should be moving. You should be dancing. And then like the music just cut out, and like a baby started crying like on the speaker. So it really like startled me, and I remember thinking like, what's that? And just sat up, and like the music had changed from like this random Disney playlist that I'd put on, and Stevie Wonder's "Isn't She Lovely" came on, and like that starts with like a baby crying, so like obviously like got my attention straight away. But I just had this like really profound experience where it just like I felt like he was just with me, and he was like, it's okay, you know, it's not your fault, like it's not on you that I'm not here, kind of thing. And it like I genuinely to this day feel like he was the only person that could have helped me get out of the room, and that he did like he yeah, just whenever like I hear that song now, you can bet that it will like come at a moment when you need to hear it or something, you know. And I just felt like just overwhelming like love in that moment of like something that just like death can't strip. It can't strip that bit away. It can't like take that love away. It doesn't. Yeah, I get to have that part. And yeah, for me that bit was just something that we kind of want to reflect on now. Like it feels like out of body experience, you know. It's not, it's yeah, it's just it's all so intense and strong, but some like yeah, somehow magical in certain ways too. It's just insane.
Oh, Laura, I'm sat here sobbing with you. What a beautiful little soul to send you that song. I'm so sorry. So sorry for you that happened. I just think you're amazing. These reflections you've got about it, and these little miracles, and the light, you know, the divinity, the sacredness that's in this mystery of life. Just very profound. Yeah, so moved. There was another miracle happened, wasn't there, soon after this, what you shared with me before we came on the recording.
Yeah, after leaving the um the room that Tommy was in to say goodbye to him, um like I'd left that room and my partner had gone into that room, but I was just in this complete like freeze of okay, like where do I go now? Like what do I do? And just really struck in that moment of not knowing like how to move forward, like knowing I have to like just even basic in that moment of like getting back to the room from, you know, that room from one corridor to the next. Just it just felt really intense of like closing that door behind me, and I just stood there for a while, and I felt yeah, just really froze in the moment. And I remember like I went to stand next to the to get a drink, to walk to a water fountain, and like could just feel like how fragile I was in that moment. And I'm trying to like walk and breathe and take it all in and get my head around everything, and everything just felt so intense and like nauseating. And I remember really feeling like on the brink of like just I'm gonna break, like I'm gonna collapse. And as I turned around, there was a woman standing there, and she just wrapped her arms around me and just said to me, "My son died 4 years ago." And in that moment, like it just felt like she'd been placed there, like she was just I didn't have to speak to her. She just knew why I was being how I was being, and I didn't know why I was being that. So it's just this thing of just knowing and holding me for a minute, but then explaining to me that, you know, she really understood what all this was about, and that she'd had her own experience of it. But for me, thinking that she's still here, she's still alive, like for her to say that to me at that moment was like just someone handing me like hope, just that you're going to make it past the 4 minutes that you just originally thought you're never going to make it past. You're going to get, you can do it. You are, it's a possibility. And that in that moment is like everything that's, enough in that moment. So yeah, again, like it, looking back, and I am grateful that in those like traumatic moments and, you know, how intense that was, that somehow, they found hope in things or love in things, and connection and those kind of things, like, yeah, were with me and helped me. You just saved me, essentially. So yeah, I have to have like gratitude for those moments too, and just having someone understand you that, wasn't a doctor. Or I mean, my partner, well, my mom, when she was there, she'd explained to the doctor that Laura's not coping very well, obviously, with like all of this. She seems, a bit like erratic, a bit in denial with grief and stuff. And is there anything you can give to her? And the doctor came with a sleeping tablet and, gave me a sleeping tablet. And that was decided that's what I needed in that moment, is to just, sleep it out. But like, it's insane to me now to looking back and thinking like, it's just the answer, it's an easy answer. Instead of someone sitting with me and just giving me that space to just navigate through things or just be with my grief, it's like, well, we can give you a sleeping tablet and just knock you out for a good few hours, and obviously then that adds to the other things that you're already feeling, the fatigue and stuff. I mean, I took the tablets and I went to the toilet and I just collapsed in the toilet. I just fell asleep like on the toilet. And my partner came in and he had to like, look after me and pick me up and literally carry me back to the bed. And yeah, I was just out cold, which I know, like, it itself is in a choice if you want to take something to try and numb yourself in those moments. But ultimately, like when we wake, they're still there, So for me, like, that was a big real, like that was when the internal like did come out of me. Like I went to sleep being all quite, delirious and a bit still spending time with Tommy and stuff. And then after I'd said goodbye to him, I had this tablet. And then when I did wake up, I remember really it being in my face of like, oh, like I'm awake. And I remember exactly what I've woken up to. And yeah, there wasn't no like in denial then. I was very like, I remember, because he's not in the hospital anymore, there was no like, you can go to his room and see him, or that part had already been done, kind of thing, while I was asleep. So there's that thing of then knowing that, it's kind of like you got to check out your hotel now. Like we were both in that little suite together of where Tommy was, and it was kind of like, well, he's gone now, you can go now. Like, in the morning, kind of like packing up your bags. And my nan and granddad came to pick us up, and I just remember walking down the ward thinking like, this is really surreal. Like I've never experienced the part where you just don't have your baby with you. And yeah, like instantly knowing as well, like you you won't be pregnant again, like because not, or you're obviously grieving in a physical sense, but because the pregnancy has ended so quickly, you're very aware as well that they're not inside you anymore too. Like all of those feelings have gone, so you've gone from being like pregnant and being very aware and feeling all those movements and connection, and then giving birth, and then like both of them have ended now. That's it. So get on with things. And yeah, it was just really fast from there. Just just back to it. I mean, when we were at home, we had, I think it was about a couple of weeks later, but I had a letter come through to let me know when like they'd scheduled a cesarean date for me. And I was like, I've like had to phone them up. And I remember saying to them like, he died, I've already give birth, he died. And they were like, oh, we're sorry, like we'll just make sure that's on our system now. And I was like, I remember just being really, just in just constant shock of like, yeah, this is just very surreal, like how you have to navigate through this. And I think for me, just finding other people that were going through it, like I was finding people at first to just kind of have some idea of like what are we all doing? What do we do now? Can I like sit with you and copy you kind of thing of because I have no idea what on earth to do.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. I just can't even imagine. Yeah, just really empathizing with you as much as I can. Imagining you walking out of that hospital and yeah, this question, what do I do now? Wow. So, I mean, what happened to his body?
We decided to have him cremated. And yeah, so his ashes are with us, and yeah, they're in my little locket around my neck always. So yeah, he's with. It's such a strange thing because there's like I have gratitude in that like there was things that people did for us, and like the neonatal unit, there was a lady who took loads of pictures for us and done like clay prints of his hands and foot, and like did really go to town in looking after us. But it was kind of like, yeah, once you leave there, it's kind of on you as to where you go. And we were offered counseling, um and both of us just we just really like had this thing at the time with hospitals. Obviously there was so much going on with COVID and stuff too, that it was just really hard to access anything like straight away, so you were kind of put on waiting list for things. And then yeah, it didn't feel enough really for what we just experienced to feel like held by any service of that kind. So I think for us we really noticed that like there isn't enough of it. There's not enough of like places to just go and be and decide for yourself like how you want to grieve, or again not be dictated in that part too, in your grief. If you have your own idea of how you want to go about things and it not be so linear, because it isn't. So I think for us, yeah, it was just more so just the space is what we notice people need. That's kind of, you just need space to breathe, a space to like sit with things and just decide what you need. Do you want to like scream and shout about it, and do you want to like just what feels right for you in those moments? Because it's an impossible task to just instant like go home and just pick up where you left off. But what we've learned is like so many people think that you have to do that because there's so many like expectations that come with literally just grieving, that you should be over this by now, or had so many like at least thrown at us, where it's like, well, at least you already have children, or and I used to think like, if you say that to somebody in terms of saying, well, at least you have other children, but like no mother can answer like, which of your child are you okay with dying then because you have others. You can't answer that. Like it's not as simple as that. So we've had so many, yeah, like at leasts about it, that it's just really difficult to stand in your own truth of grieving. Or for us, we try to be really inclusive of Tommy, and we make sure like our children like can talk about him, and it's not something that they feel they can't bring up, or that it has to be something that we avoid talking about. And that itself, like for us, that works as a family. And then for others, like, people can look in and it's like, oh, you're still talking about it. So if you're still talking about it, you're not addressing it, and that's not good. And it's this thing of, what, like, what's with the expectations, really? It's there should just be.
You mentioned earlier, before we came on the recording, about, like you said, I think you said, it's something that can be fixed. Like there's this cultural kind of idea that grief is something that can be fixed. Um, yeah, and you mentioned the awkwardness as well, in our culture where we don't embrace grief. Um, in do I raise it? Can I talk about it now? And I also, I've had friends who've lost babies, and as an outsider, wanting to offer empathy and compassion, it's a challenging thing to open up. Like, do I say this about it, or it's a bit awkward. So, would you speak a bit more about this? I mean, you mentioned the people with the rat lease stuff, but is there any other things? And if you've got any advice as well, like what would you have needed from people to say?
Yeah, I think, like, what I've learned in terms of connecting with people that have lost children is that there's such a fear of your child being forgotten, and that they won't be spoken about. Or we know that people do struggle, whether they, their intention is to be there and be supportive. Not everybody does know the right thing to say or do, or so I think the thing that I, like, from my own experience, was just letting people know myself that, like, we can talk about it, and, like, you know we can have conversations about it. And it's not always easy for everybody to do that. Some people might not want to have just conversations, but I think, if, like, it just takes the communication, really, just to let people know that how you know you feel about it, and if you can share it. Because, like, for me, like, anytime somebody mentions Tommy or includes Tommy, or just even saying his name, it's like, yeah, it's lovely. It always is really, like, beautiful. And sometimes it can still be, like, triggering, and you can have times where you're like, oh, like, you know and it's really bittersweet, but it's still, like, ignites a feeling, and it's a connective feeling to them. So it's, yeah, it's, for me, that I like to be able to talk and share. And I think when I was younger, like, my mum was young when she had me. She was 16. And when I was about 11, she had another baby. And she was really mistreated by the hospital, and she'd been sent home because there wasn't enough beds at the hospital. um, and in a lot of pain and stuff, and very, like, early on in her pregnancy. I think she was about 24 weeks. And she gave birth on the toilet at home, and I, like, was witness to all of that, like, as an, like, 11-year-old. It had to witness mom give birth. And afterwards, like, I remember they'd taken my mum to hospital, and I remember sitting with my nan and my aunt and asking, like, what happens now? Like, what's going to happen to, like, what happens to my brother? What happens to my mom? Like, what's the next bit to all of this? And nobody had any answers, and they didn't have any answers because they didn't know. Like, they wasn't, a case of not wanting to answer me. They didn't know themselves. And I remember just, like, being overwhelmed with so many questions as a child, that, like, I went outside. I remember just, like, hitting my head up against the wall and thinking, like, oh, stop all of the questions, and the like, just not knowing any what all of this is. And I think, for me, like, for my children, like, I really wanted to let them know, just, like, any questions, even if I know, like, I can't answer them, we can, like, try and work things out together, or we can just talk about it, or talk about our feelings. And just to, I kind of feel sometimes that experiencing it as a child as well as like as a mother, like that's given me the tools that can help with me with my children, you know, and how we go about it, like including grief into it things. And like they know still, you know, that I'll have days where I can be feeling certain ways, you know, and they're all really like magical with how they'll include him. It will always be like you know, something will happen and they'll like something, just a butterfly will go past and they're like, that's probably Tommy, or you know, just will include him so much throughout the day that, yeah, for me, like there's, it just feels like he's still very much a part of us, which is like, yeah, important to me, and yeah, important to us. I think, yeah, important to most people that have lost children, because the fear of them not being a part of you, like it's, yeah, it's very intense. So
What a woman, what a mother. How incredible that you are bringing this, with your children after your experience. And I'm so sorry, that you went through that when you were 11. Well, we're in this era of paradigm change, aren't we? And just seeing it over and over again in this generation of parents, how we are embracing the truth of what our humanity is. And it is emotional, it is feeling, it is this, juxtaposition between joy and absolute terror and grief. This great mystery of life throws up all these things. And I think we're engaging with it in the right way, or we're trying to learn how to, our generation. So it's just amazing, and like what you were saying, these words, like it's bittersweet. I feel it. I can feel it when the butterfly goes past and the kids say, and he's there with you. You're getting that essence of him in that moment because you're reminded, and then also he's not here in the physical. You're not watching him grow. Just so much, so much. What a woman, what a mother, Laura. So I'd love for us to move now into you telling us and the listeners, how things have been since. So when all this happened, you were living in Brighton, was it, or some sort of city, and you were searching for some sort of way of moving out of, the first initial wave of it, and like you said, to try and engage with life, to get good with the grief, to make friends with it, to have a space for it, and to help other people as well. And you were speaking about how you and your partner were like coasting side by side in it, but with everything else, all the life and the other kids and everything, it was challenging for you to come back together. And then you went on this trip, and that's where things changed and you made the decision to move. So will you go into that and tell us about your project and your land and what you do there?
yeah, we it was Brixham that we lived in, Devon. And we decided to go wild camping in Dartmoor. Um, and it was very much like, like, you know, when you've just had one of those days and it's like, I need to just go find a room and close the door for a second and just be on my own. It's kind of like that for us both, where we just felt we needed to just get away for a minute, but like be, yeah, completely on our own, but together. I think the thing with like grieving is that you don't do it the same way. Everybody has their own way of grieving, so it's like it can be very challenging in your relationship, because one person's going one way about it and the other person's doing another, but you're still trying to like, yeah, stay together in it. And I think for us, it was a really challenging time, and we kind of thought we need to just have a moment and like go and chat properly, uninterrupted, and just kind of get everything out that we need to. And yeah, we headed to Dartmoor, and we kind of both just agreed that we thought that this was a good start for people that were grieving too, that anybody in our situation, we thought if they had that opportunity to just go out somewhere, go outdoors, go, as wild as you can or as remote as you can for a moment, or, there's lots of opportunities, but just to take a moment more so, take a pause together, that it's a good start basically for going forward then, like for deciding what you want to do. Do you want to have like therapy? Do you want to talk about things together? Do you like want to scream and shout and cry and hug each other? Like, just have a moment, because yeah, like I expressed, when you leave the hospital, that it's just an instant get back to it. And I think that if that just continues to go on, it's like it can just feel like a spiral of like, hold on a second, I need to just catch my breath for a moment, So yeah, we decided from that moment to set up a charity, and we moved from Brixham to Wales, and we got some land here, and we run retreats and well, we don't really do much really. We just don't have the space for people, we kind of just say it's there and come, and we don't charge to stay. It's just a, come and stay and use the, like, we've got a vintage caravan now that we're just restoring, and it's just sat by the river, and it's just like, yeah, go stay there for a few days, and it all depends on the people really. Like, if they want to have chats with us, like, we'll chat, and or if they want to just be left alone and completely to themselves, or and we try and plant trees then with everybody who stays. So there's like a little forest that's just being remembering, our babies. And I think a lot of people are like inclined to come because it's a space where you can talk about things, you can just be open and be really raw with what's going on for you. But yeah, so many people just, I think we like witness that people just like you said earlier, it's not a case of like you come and then you go away and you're healed now and know what, you're never going to feel sad ever again. Like, that isn't a possibility, for you can't just get on with it and get over it and it's never going to affect you. Or I've learned I can be having like brilliant weeks, and then something tiny can happen or something can be said, and it can be really, triggering in the moment of just feeling like, oh yeah, Tommy's not here with us. But I think if you've got a place where you can just be with that and talk about that and how that's feeling for you, or have like a village of people, is have people around that you can just go to and have support, have some navigation, and just sometimes just having somebody else that is going through something or has been through something, like that the lady that said her son had died 4 years ago after I came out from seeing Tommy. She didn't do very much in that moment, but she just shared her own experience in very little words, and that was enough to you know really help me in that moment. So I think sometimes, like, yeah, we don't have to go all out to try and do something. We just have to hold space and a bit of understanding and empathy, and that can, be enough. And I think a lot of it is through shared experience. And I think now in this place of reflection and looking back, that's what's really like big for me, is just to share my experience. And like, if it helps somebody, then that's it, isn't it? That's like what it's all about. And that's kind of like the only thing that I can do with certain things in it. Like, I've realized with anger around certain things, like, for me, my oldest daughter she'll be turning 16 in June. So she's like, it's this whole experience at the minute of like, wow, I've got a 16-year-old, and that in itself is just insane. But like the other day, she messaged me and said that, you know, she just mentioned really casually in conversation that her ovulation was in 3 days. And I just remember, like, I just felt really like, oh, like, I didn't even know what an ovulation was at that age. Like properly, like didn't know. I wouldn't put it in writing to my mom about things, or and I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of like cycle, like knowing that I could know when that day was going to be, or I just like you said with thinking that you could get pregnant at any time and stuff. I was very similar with like you just have a period, it just comes and then it goes, and that's all there is to it, really. Not being aware of it. So as me now as a parent for my children, it's like I'm just trying my best to do as much as I can to be very like open with things and to change the narrative, like very many of us are. I'm really pushing boundaries. I've been drawing with my period blood, and then all the kids, I'm like showing it them, and they're all really like, "Okay, mom." But it was like I've done it with my nan. Like my nan came to visit, and I shown her, and I shown my picture, and she was really like, "Okay." I could see in her face, like I was like, "You quite like impressed by that," and it's being a bit like just trying to change things as much as I can, even in the older generations of my family, to be like, it's okay. It's not this real taboo thing. And the same with death, like it is a part of things that happen to us, and we can talk about it, and we can exist simultaneously with the grief and the love and all of it. So yeah.
I love this work that you're doing with your daughter. I love that she's texting you about ovulation and the phenomena of showing menstruala, which is the name for art with menstrual blood, to our parents is hilarious. I remember when I got my first bleed after removing all the contraception, and I saved it and I painted roses with it. And then I put this post on Facebook with this picture and this blurb about, glad I was that it had come back and, really celebrating. And my mum sent me a message saying, please, can you take it down? She just couldn't handle it. So they're so squeamish, like the menstrual shame. But yeah, I think it's amazing what you've done with your daughter. And then the other thing, what's coming up for me is about how culture in its clambering and its learning to try and hold humans and learn about humanity. We've kind of like institutionalized bits of organic humanity, and I think what I'm hearing from you is it's like let's rehumanize grief. Don't institutionalize it. It's not. Don't try and fix it. It's a part of you now. You walk with it. You get good with it, and the way you address talking about it. Like how you've rejected therapy and just mediation, embracing it, the reality of it, not suppressing it, not judging any of the way it expresses itself, but just giving it the space, giving the grief the space, giving yourself the space, and now you've made this space for other people to come and just rehumanize the grief and to be able to move through it organically. There's no script, is there, with nature and how it just flows. And I think that's all you can do, right? In the moments when it's really rough and raging, like the storms of the last couple of days, you just have to embrace it. Oh, it's really beautiful and it's amazing. We embrace that moment as well, and just all happening, all an unfolding happening. But yeah, there's this institution that wants to control it, medicate it, pathologize it, suppress it, fix it. And I think originally intentions were about trying to help humanity. But I think, again, in this epoch of paradigm change in our generation, we're having these realizations, aren't we? Actually, we've gone way too far and we don't need to control that. Let it just be human, and then we can get to grips with it and let it be more organic. So just, I think it's amazing what you've done and what you're offering and how you've navigated through it. And I'm just so deeply moved and inspired, Laura. I really am. I'd love to know the name of your charity if you want to share it. And if you have a website where perhaps other mums who are grieving feel, drawn, maybe they could get in touch if that's something you want to share. And
Yeah,
then, we can move to if there's anything else you feel like is important.
yeah, it's called Forever Young Social Impact Network. Um, and we're on Facebook and Instagram, and then that will have links to the website. And yeah, we've got a little parcel of land in Wales that I cannot pronounce the name of. But yeah, so all the details and stuff are on there, and we like it really just is like, because at first we started obviously, very much in baby loss and loss of children and grieving, and then just, as the years have gone on, we're like just very aware of the social impact of so many different things, that we've kind of just opened our umbrella to just holding space mainly, and being inclusive of lots of things for that. So we do run like courses, or we'll have like days where we grow food up there, and we've got like chickens and stuff. So yeah, we've like just basically hold space for whatever, even just, collaborating with people if they want to use the space for people they know need it, and just trying to impact society in a more positive form, so. And yeah, I think what did you say, dehumanizing, was it? Yeah, I love that word. But just there is this lots to kind of strip away, I think, at the minute, of just how things are ran, and just looking at them and thinking, like, even, afterwards, just deciding whatever you need to decide and making decisions, and then even going back and thinking, actually, therapy didn't work out, I want to try something else. Or I think more essentially, if you just have the space and you have people around that can listen and see you and hear you, that in those moments, then you can make more informed choices of like what you want to do with things, and how you want to move forward, or just, but essentially just understanding it all, instead of being forced into these, like, this is what you should be doing, or the expectations of things. I think just cut that bit out, and just focus on, you getting your breath back, and just sitting with things for a moment, and then, deciding where you go from there. Like I say, then you can always come back to the space too, and be like, I decided where I wanted to go, and it wasn't the right place, so I'm going to come back and, like, have a moment and make the decision again, because that's like what we're all doing, isn't it, in living? It's just up and down, and, so I think, the space thing is just really important to have, and to help people just get outdoors and have a bit more time away from just the rat race of things, and feeling that you've got things to commit to, and you've got to do this and you've got that, and we're kind of conditioned to believe that we don't really deserve to take any time out to even just understand things. So I think just, accepting that you are deserving of the time to give to yourself, to just take a moment to sit with something. You don't have to just have the answers straight away to go forward. And with lots of things, we don't have to have the answers straight away. We can, if we're a bit more informed with things, that we can make better choices for ourselves, and encourage people that time and space to do so, instead of being so adamant that everything needs to just be happening and happening in the same way, and you just go through these like 5 stages of grief and hit them all, and then once you've hit them all, you're kind of done. Then that's it, you've passed grief. It just doesn't work like that. So yeah.
What an epic revelation. I feel like we're coming to a natural conclusion now. So we've decided we need to rehumanize grief, that the institution needs to make more space in the moments to give women the time, or at least say, you're not in the right state of mind now to make this decision about sterilisation. So why don't you get over all of this, and then in 3 months' time, come and make an appointment and we'll have a chat about it. Just little things like that, or trying to make more space for compassion, deeper empathy in those moments. And then this forest of these little trees, of these remembered babies, just loving the vision of that, and this beautiful little caravan where there's this space where people can go that are so raw, so overwhelmed with, like you say, the conditioning, and no space in their life to just sit and grieve, especially if they've got other kids. Never mind, at least they've got kids, especially if they've got other kids, it's going to really get in the way of the process, right? Like when they gave you that sleeping tablet, got in the way of your process. So maybe we just all need to hold hands, rehumanize, trust our organic nature as the intelligence. And like you say, just tend to that. How can I serve that space? What do you need? How can I serve you? Rather than, like you said right at the beginning, this dictation, this is what you should do, this is how it goes, and all these self-help books, do this, do that. What we want is to give people back their autonomy, grieve intuitively, make your own space if you can, come to this beautiful Forever Young social impact network, see this forest of trees of babies that are remembered, feel Tommy's spirit, dancing in the leaves, playing in the water. Yeah, meet this beautiful family that can help you. So grateful, Laura. So grateful. I'll put a link onto your website underneath the podcast as I share it. Is there anything else that you want to say?
Oh, just thank you, really. Like, yeah, when I seen your post and the timing just felt right. And I always have this thing where I say that Tommy kind of just puts me on, it helps me meet people at the right times, and it's always the right person. And for like a long time, I've wanted to, speak about some of my experiences, but I've just struggled with nerves of thinking, how do I, what if I don't say the right thing? And yeah, I'm just really, really grateful that you've given me a space and an opportunity. But yeah, you've made it really easy, and really, I can feel like, yeah, your sincerity and just what you're doing too. And yeah, I'm really, really, really grateful for being able to share.
Oh, Laura, what a woman, what a mother. You've moved me so much. It's so profound. Like, I put my roots down earlier because I knew. And then when we were talking about Tommy and his last moments, and it's really moved me that. I'm so grateful that you've come on to share this story and to bring this medicine to other families who have lost babies, and just really celebrating you, celebrating your strength, your courage, the trust that you've had in yourself to carve your own way through this, and how you're holding your children, the way you're bringing them up. It's just so beautiful, so inspiring, so enriching. And these themes about obstetric violence, it's really important that people learn more about that so that when they're going into that environment, they can have more autonomy and say, hey, this isn't the right time for me to make that choice, or no, and stay in the know. And I think the more that people do that, and the more that we can open these feedback channels, the better the services are going to get, because we need them. And, we don't want to all have to pay private to get really good healthcare. We want to just, help the NHS to grow and to evolve and to become more rehumanized, right? In their emotions and their intuition and their empathy and their compassion and, yeah, space. So many prayers out into the world from this for all the grieving parents and all those little souls that weren't destined to be here for very long, but have made such an impact. We remember them. We remember them. We remember baby Tommy, bless him, and all the other babies, remembering Gemini, Rose and Alex's baby, remembering him, remembering the miscarriages as well, because that gets so overlooked, doesn't it? It's like a non-happening the way culture looks at miscarriage. No matter how early it happens, it's still a big loss for that woman. So this has been an amazing podcast and journey for me. And I think there's such rich medicine in here. And we are, like we've been talking about, we're making a paradigm change. So this is a drop in that as well, isn't it? So I need a brew now. I definitely need a brew, and just to have, like you say, some space just to breathe. And giving you such thanks. Yeah, really, just really honouring you. What a woman, what a mother, what a journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ah,
And just for even just saying about like trusting in myself, like that is yeah, something that I think we all just need to remember, because it definitely is something that I've had to really work on. But just remind myself, too, of that this is my truth. This is like I know myself, and as I've got older, my reflection is like I always did, I always have, and always will. So yeah, just being able to trust in yourself and your own decisions. I think going forward, obviously we do need care, and we need the services, but you still yourself, and you can trust yourself, and it's okay to just ask for a bit more time or space or information, or any of those things. It's not, we don't have to like be worried about being an inconvenience, or not wanting to challenge something, or just doing something with ease. That it's okay for us to just, even if at the very least thing we do is just say, can I have some space to just go away and take some time to have a little think about what I want for me. And why can't we have that?
Yeah, very wise words. I think it's to do with patriarchy and suppression of our voice. But again, in this epoch, it's coming on, and that inspiration there, like you giving permission, ask for it. If you don't want to make that decision, then don't. If you don't want to do that thing, don't. Like your husband, he could see, couldn't he, that Tommy was okay with you. And then the bureaucracy, the procedures, the systems, and wanting to put him back in there. Who knows? Who knows? How things would have been different. But yeah, if we can have that voice, that's going to help us, isn't it? Moving forward, because we won't have them questions, we won't have that confusion, what if, because we'll have had our voice. So yeah, really encouraging all the listeners, women who are going into birth, into pregnancy, families are going into give birth, into labour, working with this NHS system. Yeah, fight for your autonomy, fight to make them do it your way as much as you can. Yeah, blessing them, blessing you, Lord, blessing your family, blessing your life and your project. Blessing you, listeners, everything that you've been through. I've been your host, Rainbow Goddess, and this has been Laura Jade, and she's been Rawful But True. Could you?